It's time for the Movin the Chains podcast. Your home for high school football coverage in the Palmetto State. Every team, every game, every week. And now your hosts, Kevin Thomas and Jerel Hendricks.
Welcome into Movin the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks here for our Round 1 Folly Row recap show. Jerel, the playoffs are here. We had some really good action on Friday night. I tell you what, we also had some colder weather, felt like playoff weather here in November, but man, a great first night of action in the playoffs.
Yes, the grass is turning brown. I actually wore pants, so you know it was cold outside. So yeah, I mean it's I normally wear shorts, folks, so don't worry about that.
Just to clarify there.
Yeah, just a little clarification for sure. But yeah, a lot of fun, man. We saw a mixed bag. I mean, there was some tight ones, some blowouts, a couple upsets, but it was a lot of fun. Glad we picked a good one. And again, under the water tower there, we had a great time.
We certainly did. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, we appreciate you. Check us out on all social media platforms at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS, our website, movinchains.com, our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We do a weekly preview show about 7 o'clock on Facebook Live and YouTube Live on Tuesdays. Come check that out as we preview all of the next round's games. Drill and I do a weekly recap show, comes out on Sundays on our podcast platforms. We recap all the action from the previous round. And then we do our Friday night spaces over on Twitter/X about 10:30 or 11 on Twitter on Friday nights. We go live and run through the scores from across the state. We have different players and coaches and commentators and fans hop in, talk about the game they were at. It's a lot of fun to do as well. So definitely check that out each and every week as we do our Friday night spaces here throughout the playoffs. Also, before we get going, Drill, everybody go check out the MTC merch. Get you some hats, get you some hoodies, get you some beanies, some toboggans, whatever you want to call it there. I'm a toboggan guy myself. Some folks prefer a beanie, but whatever, man. We got some good merch. We got a gray sweatshirt, a white sweatshirt. Really, really comfortable stuff. Everybody who has one loves it. I've worn mine probably now for 3 games in a row. It's getting a little bit chillier for sure. We have Richardson hats, really good stuff there. Good quality stuff. A lot of different color options. Definitely get yours. mtcgear.sc@gmail.com for all your questions, and pictures are on our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter pages. But, Drill, before we talk about that big ball game over under the water tower, let's give a quick shout out to our friends of the program.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row, very good polos.
Jerel and I made the trip over to Greer Dooley Memorial Stadium for a 1-4 matchup. Greer, the 1 seed out of Region 2 4A. Indian Land, the 4 seed out of Region 3 4A. Jerel, I know, looking at the 1-4 line there, you don't see a lot of good matchups typically in the first round. But this one, and we were right about it, we felt like was a lot closer than what the records and the seedings indicated.
Yeah, for sure. Just honestly, just looking at the strength of these regions, you just understood, Greer had a little bit easier road, but not to diminish their accomplishment of winning that region championship. They handled their business, but they did not play the quality of opponent that Indian Land had to face in their particular region. And you kind of just saw that these teams were evenly matched. Greer plays a tough non-region schedule to prepare them to make that run. And Indian Land, they have to go through the gauntlet. That is their region each and every week. So they were battle tested in a different way. And it just, worked out perfectly for us, especially with it being a little bit closer to home. And we just saw it happening because, these first rounds, these 1-4s, these 1-5s, 1-6s in some cases, they can get out of hand really quickly. We'll talk about some score lines a little bit later in the show that are evidence of that. But this was a very good football team between 2 evenly matched teams. Little controversy, little bit of everything, man. So it was a lot of fun, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I believe we were actually split on our picks on our preview show. I think I took Greer, John took Indian Land. I can't remember which way you went, Drew. I think you went Greer as well. Okay, great pick it ends up being for sure. But
yeah,
Indian Land started off really hot. Opening kickoff, 90 yards to the house by LaVoris Lucas. They go up 7-0, just 11 seconds in. Greer answers right back, 4-yard touchdown pass from Chris Hall to Brock Diggins to tie it up. The big play on this drive, Jerel, was they had 3rd and 30 early on in the drive. Yeah. Hall scrambled for about 20 on 3rd down and gets a late hit penalty to give them a first down. They end up capitalizing there with that touchdown pass to tie it up 7-all with 7:57 left. Greer takes the lead on their next possession, a 23-yard touchdown pass from Chris Hall to Chase Bird. Bird, I mean, we said it in the stadium. He literally just mossed the defender. I mean, I thought the defender had his hands on the ball first, but Bird went up and took it away, snatched it for a touchdown to go up 14-7 as the quarter ended. A heck of a play there from a really, really good receiver. Not much happened early on in the second quarter. Late in the quarter, though, Indian Land does tie it up, a 1-yard TD run by quarterback Jackson Scheidt, and the Warriors knotted up at 14-all with 3:41 left. And what I really liked about that drive, Jerel, is it felt like they were getting really more comfortable on offense. I guess Coach Hastings to see some stuff. They kind of went to some multiple formations, did some wing T stuff, some tray right, trips right stuff, some pistol stuff. Really got multiple with it, and I think it really kind of caught Greer off guard there on that drive.
Most definitely. This is something you really don't see a lot in high school football, just because it's so difficult. I remember we talked a couple of weeks ago with Coach Leapart down in Gilbert. They do the same thing, run a lot of different formations and things like that to really stress the defense. And you could tell they were finding those, running the same plays essentially, but just giving the defense different looks pre-snap. And it was really effective. And we'll see evidence of that as we get into the second half with Indian Land. They were able to get that ground game really going.
The halftime score was 14-all between the two. To start the third quarter, Greer got the ball, and they marched down for a touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown pass from Chris Hall to Chase Bird. They go up 20-14 after a missed extra point with 9:35 left in the third quarter. That score,
Kevin, I got to stop you. You can't gloss over it. That will come into play heavily, though. That missed extra point in the second half of this football game is really going to change the dynamics and the complexities of the game outcome.
And not the last time we'll talk about a kicking story from Greer as well. So, that missed extra point was big, and that actually score held to the end of the third quarter, 20-14. Greer led going to the fourth. But that's when Indian Land unleashed Sequel Patterson. This guy is a stud. Scores on a 51-yard touchdown run out of the Wildcat. I mean, made a couple of juke moves, had a nice spin move on a guy about 10 yards downfield, took it 51 to the house, took a 21-20 lead with 11:27 left in the fourth quarter. And Joe, this is actually after maybe the drive before he had muffed a punt and given the ball back to Greer. But the Indian Land defense stood tall, made a stop there, and Sequel gets a chance to make up for his mistake. And boy, did it with that big play.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a freshman, man. This kid is just a super dynamic athlete. Like you said, short memory there, memory of a goldfish, that's why you have guys like that on the field, because, they just continue to play ball and you just can't keep their talent off the field. And that's so big for him. His first playoff game, first year playing varsity football, muffs a punt, and then I think it was inside the 30 where he muffed that punt, whereas gave Greer a real scoring opportunity that defense able to hold, and he's able to be like, hey, defense, I got your back. I'm going to figure this out, and made some big time plays for his team.
Patterson was not done, Jerel. He has another touchdown the next drive, a 48-yarder on a little bit of a pop pass there, goes down the right sideline, gives Indian Land a bigger lead. They go up 28-20 after about a 40-yard extra point after some penalties there. Pretty wild play there, but they go up 28-20, 8:34 left in the fourth quarter. And this is when it really was in a danger zone for Greer, in my opinion, because on the ensuing kickoff, Greer fumbles. Indian Land recovers at the plus 30. If they get any kind of points on that drive, the game's probably over. However, they actually end up going backwards, can't get anything going, end up giving it back to Greer. And LaDainian Martin just shows why he is one of the better backs in the state. A 42-yard touchdown run gets him to within 2 points. They call a timeout, I think, go for the two, run a pass play, falls incomplete. So they're still down. Indian Land leads 20-26, 4:44 left in the fourth quarter. Greer tries an onside kick. They don't get it. And I think at this point, Jerel, after a couple, like I said, a timeout for the point conversion and a timeout a couple drives earlier after some funky stuff by Indian Land, Greer had one timeout left. 4:44 left on the clock. Indian Land has a real chance to just run it out there. I think they get one first down, Jerel, and then have to basically punt it. So Greer gets the ball back with 2:39 left. No timeouts at their own 29 down 2. And at that point, I mean, it's the playmakers took over. Chris Hall did a great job at quarterback. LaDainian Martin had a big catch and run for them. They get down to the Indian Land 16 with a minute 04 left. They actually run a couple more plays, get a first down, get down to, I think, what would have been, the 4-yard line, Jerel.
Yeah.
On third down, third and goal, decide to kick the field goal there with about 19 seconds left. Would have been a 21-yarder at this point. We see actually a false start. The kick gets blocked, but it didn't matter. The play was blown dead, whatever. Back it up to a 26-yarder by sophomore kicker Wills Ryan. He kicks it off the upright, and this is where the drama unfolds here, Jerel. We get a roughing the kicker call.
Yeah.
That in real time, neither one of us really saw it because we're obviously videoing. We video the kick and we video the ball going towards the upright. And, as you'll see on our Twitter page, we've got a video of it hitting the upright. So we weren't really watching behind the play. Just saw the flag come in, saw two Indian Land, guys laying there, and that's all that we could really tell. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about what happened after that. Then we'll go back into this section here. But So after the roughing the kicker play, we move the ball half the distance to the goal. Wills Ryan gets another shot at it. This time drills the field goal. It was what was after that? It would have been a 22-yarder. He makes it 19 seconds left. Greer goes up 29-28 over Indian Land. Indian Land, they get the kick. They fall on it quick. They run a couple little plays. Nothing happens. And Greer wins the ball game 29-28. But going back to that roughing the kicker penalty, Jerel, we've now seen a second angle of it. And I'll tell you, man, unless I'm missing something, I'm not sure where that call came from.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like you said, we're filming, we're actually down there on that sideline. We're on the Indian Land sideline, just trying to get a good angle of the kick. Like you said, when you're filming that stuff, you're watching the ball snap, you're watching the ball go up and, go doink off the upright. That's my instant reaction. I'm like, holy crap, he missed this. I feel bad for this kid. And then you have the elation from the Indian Land sideline. You're trying to capture the crowd there. And then all of a sudden you realize there's a flag on the field and then we're going to do it again because of the penalty. But then we've seen some video and things like that from the actual kick. And I mean, I don't see it at all. I mean, unless, like you said, unless I'm missing something, you're missing something. Again, we didn't see it live, but looking at the video, it's pretty clear. There was no roughing the kicker there. I mean, I just got to be explicit there. There wasn't a roughing the kicker, and you just hate it. I mean, because as neutral parties like we are, we're definitely not rooting for anybody to win. But like, I can't imagine, going on the road, fighting your heart out, and everything that goes into a season, and that's how the game's decided. The officials are there to keep the game going. They should not assist in aiding any outcomes, and it's just a tough break for Indian Land. But again, I do want to state Indian Land 4:44. I looked at you, we were still, I don't think we'd gotten down to the field yet. I thought the ball game's over. I think Indian Land, get a couple first downs and you have all the opportunity in the world to win that football game. So you want to give Greer their credit, because they got the ball with less than 3 minutes and they got the stop and they took the plays, took the ball down the field, got inside the 10 and gave themselves an opportunity to win the football game and they capitalized. So you have to give Greer credit. In this sense, you just have to feel sorry for the outcome for Indian Land. Tough, hard-fought game, tough, hard-fought season. Just didn't go their way on Friday night.
Yeah, and obviously the angle that we've seen is just from, basically the up top video on top of the stadium, so on top of the press box, excuse me. So maybe, it's too far out to really tell what happened. But what's weird to me, Jerel, is like, I watched it the first time, and at first glance, I'm like, okay, it looks like it doesn't really hit the kicker. The kicker doesn't really fall down, doesn't really sell it, anything like that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, maybe they smoked the holder because that could obviously draw the flag too. They didn't hit the holder either. So I don't know, maybe he didn't give him a place to land after he kicked it. It's all I can maybe assume. But like I said, from the angle that we could tell, it didn't seem that way. but we, weren't right on top of the play like the ref was either. So it's hard to say. But if from what I have seen, I wouldn't have called it. Am I saying it was the wrong call? Not necessarily, because obviously we weren't right there on it. But from the video we've seen, it's hard to make that assumption for sure. But like you said, though, Indian Land, they had a couple chances. They could have iced it. There were 4:44 left. They also could have iced it if they had scored off of that Greer kickoff fumble.
Yeah,
8 minutes left as well. He gets some points there. That pretty much ices it. But just a wild game, a crazy game, and you do have to give credit to Greer for making that last-minute drive, because throwing the ball, they hit a couple big ones to Bird, but outside of that had not really been the strength of their team all night long. They'd really been, relying on Martin with some big runs, and they couldn't really do that on that last drive. They had to kind of throw a little bit. They were able to get it done and make the move down there to get in position for that game-winning field goal. But, Coach Hastings and Indian Land, you hate it for them. Like,
sure.
That's a team that, like you said, Jerel, they were a good football team. They just play in a really tough 4A region. I mean, they finished a 4th in that region, and they have a 1 seed on the ropes. Easily could have won that ball game. You hate to see that game end the way it did, but they did certainly handle it with class. I saw, Coach Hastings put out a couple of tweets today, and obviously didn't go after any refs and that stuff. Said it was really just saying thanks to the program, thanks to these seniors for doing this, and really handled it as well as he could have for sure. And appreciate him giving us some time before after the game to talk to him as well. But had a great time over at Greer as always. A great atmosphere there, great crowd. Got to talk to Coach Young after the game. Got to talk to LaDainian Martin after the ball game. A lot of great people there. Had a great time in the stands. Great concessions as well, Jerel. The hot dog was fantastic, man. We got a review coming out next week. That was really good. The free popcorn, couldn't beat that late in the game as well. Had a great time over there. But like I said, I talked to Coach Will Young after the ball game. Jerel talked to LaDainian Martin, the star running back. We'll put those interviews in here right now, and then we'll kind of wrap up our round 1 game over at Greer.
Movin the Chains here at Will Young, Greer, 29-28 over Indian Land. Coach, you guys, they score open kickoff, they run right back into you guys. You keep fighting back. You go down late again, to those guys about 8. How do you, talk the resilience of your team to come back and get that win?
Well, it's big. We had some penalties in there on some drives in the second half that kind of cost us offensively. We got to figure out how to eliminate that, but proud of the stop the defense got there to get us the ball back with a couple minutes to play. And our guys, our 2 top guys, LaDainian Martin, Chase Bird, actually did really well on that drive. Wish we'd have put it in and didn't rely on the sophomore kicker, but he got 2 shots at it, so he made the second one.
I was going to say, Coach, Martin and Bird, big plays all night long. How much is that needed to really win games in the playoffs? Especially?
It's huge, and you combine and throw Chris Hall in there too, and we've got 3 pretty good ones.
Got the win tonight. Next week we'll host Greenville. Okay. What do you know about the Red Raiders?
Oh, very talented. We've seen them on film earlier in the year. Obviously, a lot of talent, and it'll be a big challenge. So big up front.
Will Young, the Greer Yellow Jackets, 29-28 over Indian Land. Big last-second field. Congrats, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Jerel Hendricks here, Movin the Chains. We got LaDainian Martin, the running back, Greer High. They win tonight 29-28 over Indian Land. LaDainian, talk about, you really got it going in the first half. What did you see early on to feed into that, and get you going, early on?
Well, it was really the first run. Once I broke free the first run, I knew what time it was. It was confident boost. Boost my O-line up. I let my O-line know. Hey, y'all moving them. Let's keep going.
Had a big play on that last drive, to get that game-sealing field goal. How important was that for you to get that, to help your team, overcome that deficit late in the game?
Really important. I knew I needed, when I caught the ball on the sideline, I knew I needed to get some time, give my QB some time, try my best to get out there, stop the clock.
Greenville next week. That's who you guys are going to face off with. In-county rivalry kind of here. Got the same logo, everything like that. What do you know about Greenville, and are you excited about that matchup against the Red Raiders?
I'm excited. They got some athletes, but, we just got to execute next week and all that execution.
Again, LaDainian Martin, running back here at Greer High School, one of the best players in the state. They win tonight 29-28 over Indian Land. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
That was Jerel talking to running back LaDainian Martin from Greer, and before that was myself talking to head coach Will Young of the Greer Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, like you said earlier, Kev, man, just a fantastic time, over there under the water tower in Greer. That's my first time, even being from the Greenville area. I'd never been to a game over there, so you just see like the history and tradition that goes on there. I think the Lions Club was actually running the concessions for those guys, so that was really cool to see. So we got some great food, the concessions. a great crowd, late arriving, but it was a great crowd nonetheless. Field was fantastic. We always natural grass. We always like to talk about that. So it was a lot of fun. And Greer, they continue to survive and advance. That's the name of the game here. Their consolation is a really hot Red Raiders team from across the county over there at Greenville High. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they match up next week.
Yep, Yellow Jackets will be at home again against Greenville next week. So Greer once again defeats Indian-Land 29-28 in round 1 of the playoffs.
So, Kev, that was actually our first game of the week. And each and every week, those games of the week are presented by our good friends over at Kona. But we will go from a very competitive game to a non-competitive game. And that was Sumter and Ashley Ridge. Now, Kevin, Ashley Ridge is a team that, we have been high on, especially in the second half of the season. They've been lighting up the scoreboard. One of the most exciting players in the state in Derek Sally Jr. That offense was completely stifled by that Sumter Gamecock defense. This final score was 56-13. Wasn't that close because Ashley Ridge actually scored on the last play of the game. So it was really a 56-7 scoreline. It's a Sumter team that we saw play way back in week 1 of the season. Really thought Ashley Ridge would have an opportunity to win this football game. The Gamecocks thought otherwise.
Boy, were we wrong about this one. I think we were all high on Ashley Ridge. I mean, and I guess looking back at it, Jerel, it was kind of our mistake because I think we were high on them off of 2 losses. They played Fort D tough and then played Somerville very tough. But they didn't really have any big wins. So I guess maybe we kind of overrated those guys a little bit. But we knew what they were doing with Cleese and Derek Sally Jr., but certainly did not translate on Friday night. Like you mentioned, we saw Sumter, I think, back in week 1. Way back in week 1 it would have been.
Yeah.
And they beat the crap out of Ridgeview that night. But it still seemed like they had some holes in the defensive secondary. We're like, okay, these guys can get thrown on.
Yeah.
A couple weeks later, we see Crestwood do that against them exactly. We're like, okay, maybe we're on to something here. Carolina Forest beats them later in the year as well. I felt pretty confident about this pick. I was like, Derek Sally Jr. going to have a field day. Couldn't get anything going. Hats off to the Sumter defensive coordinator. Did a great job there on the back end. Also, we know the defensive line's good with Addison and those guys, but the secondary played lights out as well. They're a tough physical team. Peyton Mercer, the quarterback's been there for a long time, started a lot of ball games for them. John Peoples at running back is a guy that can really get it done along with Cam Fortune for them. Maybe Sumter's a team that we've got to look out for here in the next couple rounds. I mean, they play big, physical up front. They run the ball, which always travels in the playoffs. Defense seems to be playing well as well. But that was one of the more impressive wins I saw on Friday night was that Gamecock win over Ashley Ridge.
Most definitely. How stupid are we, though, man? I mean, really, how are we going to underestimate Coach Barnes and his team and, their tradition and their defense and, just because they lost a couple regular season games, man. Yeah. That was, like you said, very impressive win for those guys, a statement type win, and we'll see how it translates as we progress through the playoffs. But moving on, we had another game not as competitive as well. That's Philip Simmons. Iron Horses getting, their legs under them, so to speak. They knock off Manning 48-22. It's a Manning team that just really kind of fell apart down the stretch. And, I think they kind of benefited from a schedule that was a little bit light in the front end. And Philip Simmons, they took that difficult loss to Hanahan. And then they've really just rebounded the last couple of weeks and seem to be getting their things together. And this is a very impressive performance from those guys in week 1.
Yeah, Manning, I think they were undefeated until a couple weeks back. Fell to Dillon, and a second half surge by the Wildcats took them out, and then got the doors blown off by Loris. But I was like, okay, maybe it was a Thursday game, maybe it was something weird, I don't know. But they've just not been playing well the last few weeks. Played Walk-em-all to a tight game. They won it, but it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Philip Simmons, I got a little bit scared when they lost to Hanahan, like the way they did a couple weeks ago, because it wasn't as close as the scoreline was, really. I was really high on them early in the year, as everybody knows, and they got the run game going. It seems like, again, on Friday with Richardson and Asbury, and that they did whatever they wanted on the ground pretty much. That's really what the key to their team is. I mean, they don't throw it a lot when they do it. When they do, they throw it deep to Stevenson. Didn't have to do that on Friday. They just got the run game going, and Iron Horses are back on track, it seems like.
Most definitely. That's a big time win for them. Again, we got to remember this is a young program. I think this is their 5th year playing football. So it's very exciting for them. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. If you're listening to this, we'll be talking to head coach Eric Bendig later in the week as he previews their big time matchup next week against Brooklyn Casey. So be on the lookout for that. But they win that game.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's what you call a tease in the biz there, Jerel. That was very nice. Yeah. You did that. I like that. I like that.
I appreciate it. Hey, we're semi-professionals now. So we've gone from novice. I say we're semi-pros now at this point. But again, that final is 48-22. And moving on to our next game. And this game had a lot of juice coming in. It's Lakeview and Whale Branch. Whale Branch, a team, took one on the chin last week against Bamberg. But other than that, had a very, very good season, winning a lot of football games. Again, didn't play the most difficult schedule. And then Lakeview is a team that's very, very battle tested. And then a team that, they've been there before. They know what it takes to win playoff games. And they win this football game 33-28. Wild Gators get it done.
Awesome win for Lakeview. A team that we knew going into the year was really young. But even in their losses, to Marion, to Latta, and then Lamar, in all three of those ball games, very competitive. Had a chance to win probably all of them. Maybe not really the Marion game, but they had a chance in the other ones to be there at the end. Got better and better with Herlong and Foxworth and those guys, Ford, all that crew there as well for Coach King doing a great job. Whale Branch, I don't. Trying to find out the way to say this correctly, Jerel, because obviously we didn't get to see Whale Branch because of where they're located. We just don't get down there to those games. But
it's far, man.
Somebody needs to apologize because all I heard all year long was how good this team was. And the two teams they play that are worth a dang at the end of the year, they get beat 2 games in a row by Bamberg last week by a couple scores, and then by a young Lakeview team who had to travel down to Beaufort for this ball game. I don't know what happened there. Like, I know that Whale Branch has got some athletes. I wonder if maybe they let the Bamberg loss beat them twice. I don't know. But that is very surprising to me. They're a team that's been top 5. They've been in our top 5 for a while. We were hearing really good things, but I don't know. That was very disappointing to me what happened with the Warriors these last 2 weeks.
For sure. And I just boil it down to, man, I think it's a team, that has a winning tradition and one that maybe not so much, and I think that's what it is. Like Lakeview, they expect to win these playoff games. They expect to make deep runs. And that's kind of what we saw here. And again, I don't know. I'll take an apology too, because I think I picked Whale Branch to beat Bamberg last week, and that was pretty dumb of me to do. But again, their season comes to a close. They fall to Lakeview 33-28. Kev, let's go to our skis game of the week. This one got out of hand, sloppy. I mean, Clarendon Hall just fell apart in this one. We'll just boil it down to that. They imploded. They just had a night to forget. Lee Academy wins this game 42-6. Just seems like everything went wrong for that Clarendon Hall team on Friday night.
A very odd game because typically in Skiza, if you guys don't know, with there being fewer teams, you usually play almost everybody in your division throughout the year, just from a number standpoint. Maybe one team in your class you don't play, and this might have been the one for each of them. So we hadn't seen these two guys match up this year, but they both had 8-2 records, had very similar outcomes in most of the ball games they played. So it seemed like on paper should have been a very good game. Did not turn out that way. You mentioned Clarendon Hall, the running back, Darius Aiken, their running back / linebacker, probably the best player on the field, gets thrown out of the ball game there early. Coach Rankin's Cavalier squad playing great football. That's a big win for them. They were a team that, people, 8-2 is a good squad, but I don't think many folks had them pegged to win the state title in their class. Yeah. But now all of a sudden, with a win like that, you become a real contender and, really jump up the leaderboard, it feels like there.
Most definitely. And you hate that, in the playoffs, especially to just have one of those games where it just doesn't go your way. Everything, just goes wrong. Talk about happening at the worst possible time. But they fall again, 42-6. I'll go through these games of the week again, presented by our great friends at Kona. Again, Greer defeating Indian Land 29-28. Sumter all over Ashley Ridge 56-13. We had Philip Simmons defeating Manning 48-22. Lakeview over Whale Branch 33-28. And again, our skis game of the week, Lee Academy dominates Clarendon Hall 42-6. Kev, let's jump down to our pick'em contest games presented by Hannah Engineering. In the first one, Big Bad Dutch Fork. They seem to be getting right at the right time. In Bowling Springs, this is a very good story. This season, they're very much improved over the last 2 years. But it looks like they did more fighting pregame than they did during the game. Dutch Fork wins this game 56-7, Kev.
I think the Silver Foxes are legit contenders, Jerel. The defense has been there all year long, even the losses, but now the offense is playing well. John Hunt is back from injury. He's gotten more and more comfortable playing good ball now. Jacob Hamilton had a huge game, had one of the best catches you'll see. I saw that highlight going around Twitter. Was a heck of a play. Also had a punt return for a touchdown in that ball game. They're getting it done on offense. We know the defense is there with Tyler Jones and those guys. I think Coach Knotts, the way he's been talking in the last couple pregame, postgame interviews, I think he knows they've got a good team right now. I am looking forward to this Upper State 5A bracket. I think Dutch Fork, all of a sudden, if you weren't thinking about them last week, you need to now because they might be one of the top 2, top 3 favorites in Upper State 5A.
That's the thing, man. We've said it, we were disbelief like the whole first half of the season, like the things were going the way that they were for that squad. But you can just tell, like if you listen to Coach Knotts' interviews that he's had post game, these last few weeks have just been a different tune compared to you saw those first 3 or 4 weeks where he was highly disappointed with a lot of things. Not saying that Dutch Fork's going to win the state championship, but you can definitely tell that Coach Knotts and the staff there feel a lot differently about this team. It's going to be fun. You and John are going to talk about this on Tuesday. Match up with TL Hanna. If they can get past, TL Hanna next week, which I think is going to be a whale of a football game. If you're in Anderson County, yes, please get over there and see that. I think these guys can make a run. So very interesting stuff. And again, congratulations to Boiling Springs on a good season, getting into the playoffs. Like I said, very much improved under Coach Reels. I think his second year there. They are a lot better. They're going to continue to progress. Lincoln Husky comes back. They're going to be a team to contend with next year. But speaking of known commodities, and that is Gaffney, the Indians knock off Lexington 47-14. Kind of just, turned it on, after a little bit of a slow start. And, Lexington just had nothing, to keep up with the Indians.
This game was 8-8 at one point, Drill, early on there. But, yeah, just too much firepower for Gaffney. They got the pass game going, played really well. Staten did after a bad game last week. Looked a lot better. Defense, if you're going to beat Gaffney, you're going to have a passing game and a run game. I think you got to be multiple on offense. Lexington can't do that right now. Huge win for the Indians. They are rolling.
Most definitely. Our next game, absolute barn burner here. Greenwood and North Augusta. It's a rematch from earlier in the season, but Greenwood, gets a little bit of revenge when it matters the most. They win this game 17-16 over North Augusta. You got to think North Augusta just spent a lot of emotional capital, last week in that hard-fought, defeat against Midland Valley, and seems like they just couldn't get back up again this week against a very solid Greenwood team and program.
A very different game than the first time around. It was a 49-40 final. A lot more low score in this game. But hats off to Greenwood playing with their backup quarterback as well this week. Awesome to see them come out and win that ball game. On the North Augusta side, great season for Coach Bush, his first year there. Had a really, really good run down the stretch there. And what's crazy is you see last week, against Midland Valley, you miss out on being a 1 seed because you can't convert a 2-point conversion and you get a field goal block. You get to be a 2 seed, and this week you miss a 30-something yard field goal to the right, I think it was, as time expires to lose that ball game. Hate to say it because you've got one of the better kickers in the state with Jack Stevens. Also do want to shout out his brother, Drew Stevens, former North Augusta kicker. I think a freshman at Iowa kicked a 52-yard game winner on Saturday to win that game over Northwestern. Awesome there for Drew. But hate it for North Augusta this Friday. They couldn't drill that one to win the ball game. But Greenwood, a team that we saw a couple weeks ago, we thought was pretty solid. Kind of laid an egg against Greenville after that ball game. But they've got potential. I don't know what the quarterback situation will be this week, but they do have some athletes. They might could, maybe keep it close for a quarter against Northwestern. But the Trojans are pretty dang good, Jerel.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, I don't think the quarterback position matters next week, but celebrate this one. That's the beauty of playoff time, man. You win a game and you get to play football for another week. That's all that really matters. It doesn't matter that you have to face Northwestern, but but you do get to play football again. So that is a big time win for those guys. Happy for that team, and that's really cool to see them rally around the backup and get the victory. But Kevin, our next game. We saw Chester and Powdersville. Chester, kind of flexes their muscles late, pull away in a very tight ball game throughout. But the final score there is 42-34. The defending Upper State champions in 3A are one and done in this year's playoffs.
A 28-all ball game. 1 point in the third quarter fell apart there for the Patriots. Obviously the quarterback Eli Hudgens got hurt, had to come out. That was really a game changer there. But Chester. Great second half of the third quarter and fourth quarter to pull away in that ball game. A team that's very physical, very tough, in a bit of a dogfight there for a while, but good win for them. Coach Floyd's got the guys playing good ball. Their two losses are to South Point and Clinton, two pretty good teams. So they've been good all season long. Looking forward to see what they can do the rest of the playoffs.
The team that Powdersville lost to in that state championship game last year was Beaufort, and they win over Loris 30-13. Beaufort's a team, it's been a roller coaster, watching the Eagles play this year. But that's an impressive win over a very, solid Loris team that's really peaked in the second half of the year. They win that football game 30-13.
Big game from Jaden Andrews on the ground. I think he had 4 touchdowns in that one. The Eagles, like you said, Jerel, they just know how to win in the playoffs. They expect to win. And, you can't count them out this time of year.
And probably the most exciting game on Friday night, you had Woodland and Sherrall go to overtime. Woodland getting healthy, getting right at the right time. They go up to Sherrall. I think they had to travel up there, and they win that game 34-33 in overtime. That's a good win for Woodland. And, even then, Sherrall, man, that's a team to look out for, in years to come, because it's a very young Brave squad.
Exactly right. The Braves have a lot of freshmen getting playing time this year. So they'll be better and better the next few years for sure. Woodland, that's a huge win after 2 tough losses to Barnwell and to Hampton County, to knock you down to a 3 seed there in the playoffs after I think you're probably 6-0 going into that Hampton County game. So big to see them get a win on the road. If they've got their full strength, as far as like all their guys back, they're going to be a really tough out. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if their whole squad's back or not, but either way, that's a good win for Coach Ford's squad on Friday.
Again, our Pick'em contest games presented by our good friends down at Hanna Engineering. We had Dutch Fork knocking off Bowling Springs 56-7, Gaffney over Lexington 47-14, Greenwood squeaking by North Augusta 17-16, Chester defeating Powdersville 42-34, Beaufort over Loris 30-13, and in overtime, Woodland defeats Sherrall 34-33. Kevin, let's take a look at our statewide scoreboard. If there's any game that you want to talk about specifically, as always, just stop me and we will go through it. But, of course, we will start with the big boys in 5A. We had Berkeley defeating Conway over in Moncks Corner. They win that game 44-8. Big time win for the Stags.
Undefeated at home this year for Coach Lodge in his first year. Really awesome to see there. Won all their home regular season games, won their home playoff game. And now they'll be on the road the rest of the way as long as they keep winning. But that is awesome to see for him. They're building something special there. A lot of young pieces. They're going to be really good the next couple of years, but that's a huge win there for the Stags.
The Burns Rebels, they continue their torrid, winning pace that they've put on this year, following that early season defeat to Chapman. But they knock off, cross-county foe Dorman 44-17. I will say, Kevin, talking about Burns, we've really talked about that defense. They've been solid. I mean, they have been lights out all year. One of the best defenses in the state. The further we start going into these playoffs, man, I'm getting more concerned about the quarterback situation for the Rebels.
Which I'll tell you what, and you'll see it as we read it later on, guys, like the playoff performers, Andrew Stevens had a great game, like stat-wise. Like he played really well. I think the key for Burns right now is they're getting healthier. They played Dorman to a 2-point game a couple weeks ago. But now all of a sudden they got a couple pieces back. And with what they've got talent-wise around him, Stevens doesn't have to do a whole lot. Get the ball to Bomar, get the ball to Weaver, and then hand it off to Segura is all you got to do. So I think he's playing good ball right now, Jerel, for sure. There was a time of the year I was really worried as well. But I think right now he's playing pretty solid. And the Rebels, man, with that defense, like I said, if he can score 24 points a game, they're going to probably be right there at the end.
All right, you talked me off the ledge. Fine, I'm back on the Burns, train. Andrew Stevens, we'll go with that. You're always the voice of reason on this program.
I don't know about that,
Trey. Well, also too about Burns, there's a cool story if you guys subscribe. WSPA up here in the Upstate, they had a cool story on Weaver and Bomar and their story. Their dad was a state champion at Burns in the early 2000s. So check out that profile on those guys. They have been lights out all year for that Rebel squad. But Kevin, moving on, we had Carolina Forest knocking off St. James 42-14. Clover, big over Woodmont 31-14.
9 in a row there for the Blue Eagles. They played really good football down the stretch for Coach Woolbright. Woodmont's a team that had pretty good offense throughout the year, so holding them to 14 is a good defensive showing as well. Clover's a dangerous team.
Got Fort Dorchester over Socastee 42-14. West Ashley over Goose Creek 30-21. JL Man blanks Blythewood 44-0. Hillcrest battling a little bit of adversity, some injuries and things like that. They get a good win over Nation Ford 37-29. On a game that was played on Thursday, Spartanburg knocks off Rock Hill 31-7. Stratford over Chapin in a tight one, 28-27. Chapin, I feel like, made some errors down the stretch, and
I think there was
kind of let that one slip away.
I think it was a penalty late as well that set up Stratford for a 40-something yard game-winning field goal that they kicked and made. Awesome win there for the Knights.
Somerville over River Bluff, 28-3. We got TL Hanna over Fort Mill, 53-9, and White Knoll over Cane Bay, 28-0. In 4A, let's start off with all these points. Richland Northeast over Bluffton, 88-54. Kevin, I saw a stat. Richland Northeast had 997 yards of total offense in this football game.
It's unbelievable, Jerel. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, and most of them, I think, were on the ground as well.
Yeah.
And Bluffton has not been a bad football team. I know they're a little bit more, offense leaning, it felt like throughout the year, had a little bit of offense and defense. But I didn't think the defense was this bad. I mean, you score 54 points and you get beat by 5 touchdowns, Jerel. Can you believe that?
Make it make sense, right? Like,
dude, unreal.
But when your defense gives up 1,000 yards in a game with like over 700 yards rushing, I mean, you deserve to have your season in prematurely. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I was just thinking about like how long did this game take? Because I would like to watch it, to be honest. And what was it? Was it just like kickoff into the end zone and just first play touchdown every time? Like that's an absurd amount of points in a football game. But kudos to Richland Northeast, man. If they score 88 a game, they won't have to worry about losing anybody. We got Greenville knocking off South Aiken 63-7. Hartsville getting their mojo back, getting healthy. They knock off AC Flora 70-27.
The boys are healthy. Carmelo McDaniel's back after his scary incident a couple weeks ago. There was a question if he'd ever play football again at any level. And now he's back on the field. Had I think 180 yards this week. Awesome to see there for the Red Foxes. And with him back, they're back at full strength now. Douglas is back. McDaniel's back. The defense is back. I mean, they're I think a 3 seed out of that region.
Yeah.
They're better than a 3 seed, Drill. You better watch out for the Red Foxes.
Yeah, and I'm not going to jinx them though. So congrats. I'm glad they're healthy. Carmelo, man, no doubt, man, that's one of the toughest kids I've ever seen play football in this state. So glad to see that he's back out there. But yeah, that is a very good team and a very good victory. Kevin, we got another basketball type score here. Irmo puts up 85. Unfortunate part is Colleton County put up nothing. So over better still win just because of Irmo. I think this game was 65-0 at the half. They ended this game early and they still scored 85 points. I
mean, at least in the R&E Bluffton game, Bluffton was scoring points. Like you can kind of like, all right, whatever. But I mean, 85-0 drill, like I've never seen something that bad, I don't think, before. Like, even like, in a regular season game against a terrible opponent, it doesn't get that out of hand. But this is the playoffs we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, you can't blame Irmo, I don't think. I haven't seen the highlights. I don't think they were trying to, run it up. But at what point do you just take a knee? Yeah, I don't know what you do. I mean, unbelievable. Just keep the clock running somehow,
I mean, it was 65-0 at the half. They had a running clock. And they still scored 20 points somehow. I don't know. I don't blame Irmo there. We got James Island over Wilson 49-6. Again, man, that Wilson. Go ahead.
No, Wilson scored first. Jaron Waiters took it in. They went up 6-0, and that was it for the Tigers.
That I will say, I hate their season's over. That was one of the teams preseason I thought was going to make some noise, and they just never put it together. But James Island, that was another team preseason, and they have put it together. They have been very fantastic this season. And again, Lucy Beckham, another great team. They knock off West Florence 37-7. I think you got a cool stat on them coming up later in the program. Didn't see this scoreline coming. Midland Valley, off that big win over North Augusta last week, squeaked by Easley 28-21.
Easley had a lot of chances as well to tie this ball game. They had the ball multiple times with it, being a 7-point game there in the second half and could not get it done. Hats off to Coach Chapman, being able to kind of rally the guys there to get that win and not let that North Augusta kind of hang over, take too much on them. But big win there for Midland Valley. I'd love to see that for the Mustangs, a team that, Jerel, like we said, was really down before he got there. To see what they're doing this year has been really cool.
Most definitely. I'm see if they're ready to take that next step next week. Like maybe this was kind of just a situation where, big game last week, going into the playoffs, something, relatively new for this squad and just kind of maybe weren't prepared. We'll see what they do next week and kind of get a better understanding of that football team. Next game, we had Myrtle Beach over May River 40-14. Northwestern all over Lawrence 57-0. Probably the upset of the night. We got Lancaster over Ridgeview 26-14. Kevin, did you see this one coming?
I did not. Lancaster, I think if you guys listen to our recap show, I think Jerel and I were both talking about how they weren't a bad football team all year long, just couldn't quite get over the hump, which is weird to say because they literally were 1-9 going into this ball game. Their one win was a region game to get them into the playoffs. But I think they had played, 5 or 6 games that were to one score and just couldn't quite pull it out. Even 2 weeks ago, they lost to that Indian team by 3. Played them really tight as well. Played Fairfield Central tight, played South Point tight, played Catawba Ridge tight, played York tight. They were right there in a lot of these ball games. And hats off to Coach Marcus Surratt, did a great job getting his team ready for this one. I saw a story from Ian Guerin where basically they warmed up on the practice field, didn't even go to the main field until game time, kind of kept the Bruins, kept his Bruin squad away from all the music and the atmosphere and the crowd and all that stuff, and didn't let any of that intimidation come into the play there. And then when it was game time, man, they showed up and did their thing. That's a huge win for that Bruin program, a team that I hope will get good again. I grew up going to a lot of their ball games. They were a fun team to follow back in the 90s, and I hope they get back to that level. But on the flip side, Ridgeview, it's a disappointment, man. A team that last year had their season end prematurely due to a crap rule, if you be honest with you about it, with ineligible player stuff. And this year we thought it was pretty good. Had some playmakers with Gidron and those guys outside, but couldn't get it done when it mattered. And hats off to the Bruins. They're moving on to round 2.
Yeah, that's the silver lining for Ridgeview, man. Gidron's only a sophomore. So, they should be a very difficult team again next year. Next game, we had York over Riverside 26-17. South Florence over Lugoff Elgin 42-0. South Florence, kind of sluggish in this game, to start with, kind of pull away late. That's another team. I don't know. You're going to talk me off the ledge, like quarterback position. What are the Bruins? What are the Bruins doing here?
I don't know. I know they've been doing some more stuff with Cyree Livingston at the Wildcat, and you guys will hear his stat line a little bit. This really helped them out in the run game. So they're really getting it done there. And we know the defense is lights out. They've had 5 shutouts this year, probably, Jerel, something like that. Just an unreal number. Offensively, they've got a great offensive line. The tight end, Lazane, really makes them go. He's a great lead blocker, great, pass catcher as well. But I think what they're doing with Livingston's a smart move. He's an electric guy with the ball in his hands. I think he can make some plays for them. We'll see what happens when they get to Irmo and James Allen, these guys here in a couple weeks.
26 in a row for those guys, man. Impressive stuff. Got South Point over Eastside 49-7 and Westside over Airport 42-0. Give a shout out to Coach Fid. He really did well with that Airport program his first year. Those guys are, stock up. nothing. Sky's the limit for those guys. Going to 3A, BHP rolls Emerald 63-7. That ground game just continues to impress there.
Had a big game through the air as well this
yeah.
week. Kane told us on the recap show. So love to hear that. And if they can get a pass game going to complement Marquise Henderson and those guys, they'll be really tough at that point.
Got Brooklyn Casey over Lake City 42-20. Tight game here. Broome and Seneca. Broome wins it 42-35, setting up a big time matchup next week against Clinton.
I think Broome scored, like 14 seconds left, 11 seconds left, something like that to win the game. Really a great back and forth ball game. Just too much Jalen McGill at the end, pretty much.
Looky here, Camden's getting right late in the season. They knock off Dreer 48-7. Got Chapman rolling Crescent 45-0. Clinton over Palmetto 42-18. Took Clinton a little while to get in the overdrive. They pulled away late. That score line is not indicative of how close that ball game was throughout most of the contest. Got Crestwood over ODub 42-0. Daniel defeats Blue Ridge 49-2. I just need to know the story. I got to figure out how Blue Ridge scored the 2. Like that's a funny stat there. Got Dylan over North Charleston 42-8. Gilbert, this game was tight early on, and they just pedal to the metal. They win it 49-12 over Darlington. Got Hanahan over Ainer 41-16. Pendleton defeats Travelers Rest 41-16. That game was also tight. It was a 20-16 game with about 6 minutes left, and then the Bulldogs offense finally woke up. Got Wren over Woodruff to close out 3A. They win that game 49-32. Moving on to 2A, Abbeville over Columbia 46-6. Got AJ over Ridgeland Hardyville 58-16. Andrews defeats North Central 50-18. Barnwell over Lake Marion 35-8. Chesney over Batesburg Leesville 21-10. Didn't really see that one coming. I thought Batesburg, their late season surge would be able to get a win or two in the playoffs here.
Yeah, they were hot. It won 3 in a row. To fall to Chesney was definitely a surprise for me as well. That's
big for Chesney, man. They've been going through it this year, so happy to see those guys get a win and keep another week of playing football. Love that for that community. Got Fairfield Central over Liberty 48-7. Gray Collegiate, they're back in state. They knock off Pelican 62-0. Hampton County over Bishop England 33-7. Marion rolls Central Pageland 48-0. Newberry over Saluda 24-15. Big time win for Newberry there.
Love to see that for Coach Jeter's squad, a young team that played pretty good in region. I think they lost to obviously the Gray forfeit and then lost to Fairfield Central. But outside of that, won all their region games. Jamel House is a great player. They've got some talent there. They're getting better and better as they will the next couple of years for sure. They're still probably a year or two away from being real contenders, but that's a huge win over a Saluda program that we saw a couple times this year. Jerel, kind of hard to figure out, up and down for Coach Young there. Had a bad night on Friday, it sounds like.
Most definitely, yeah. Saluda, they were definitely a confusing team this year, but finally their season comes to a close. Got Keenan over 96, 24-21. 96, a team, we talked about like Whale Branch earlier in the show, did really well in the majority of the season and kind of fell apart the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was a big surprise for me, Jerel. Keenan, they're a solid football team, but hadn't been, great all year, I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
In 96, but had been playing really well. To finish the season 8-3 under Coach Bennett first year is pretty solid there. But still, you'd love to win at least one playoff game. But great win for the Raiders there out of Keenan.
Yeah, stock up though for 96 overall for that program. That's a great turnaround there for Coach Bennett. Got Oceanside over Lee Central 42-0. Got a new quarterback there. Didn't really skip a beat for those guys. Silver Bluff over Mid Carolina 47-6. Strom Thurmond all over Landrum 49-7. Another big upset, man. This is a team that we knighted a week ago that was going to make a run. Kingstree defeats Timberland 14-12. Timberland kind of just falls flat in this game.
The Wolves have been playing really good football down the stretch. Obviously, lost to Oceanside, but that was a really tight one. Lost a lot of tight games this year, in all honesty. And I thought Kingstree could pose a challenge. They've got some good athletes there for Coach Smith. Still thought Timberland at home would be too much, but obviously the Blazers came to play. Great win for that squad.
Moving on to 1A, we got Bamberg Earhart over Hannah Pamplico 43-14. Carver's Bay big over Baptist Hill 62-36. Blackfield Hilda over McCormick 46-20. Calhoun County all over Whitmire 62-0. Christchurch shuts out RSM 49-0. Christ blanks Hemingway 52-0. East Clarington over Military Magnet 42-0. I need some points. Johnsonville over St. John's 57-0. Finally, we got Lamar beating Branchville 27-6. Allendale Fairfax over Latta 12-0. Kev, did not see this. The Vikings, they had such a good regular season and lose to Allendale Fairfax in round 1 of the playoffs.
Their one loss in region to Lamar on a 7-point game there, had a chance in that ball game as well. I thought they were poised to win a couple games. Could not get the run game going at all on Friday night. Couldn't get outside. Couldn't do anything there for Jamarian Jones. Coach Osmond's still building a good program there. I think they're going to be a factor in the next couple of years. So hats off to them to get to this point. Was very surprised on Friday. Allendale Fairfax, a team that we had as a team of the week earlier in the year. I think they knocked off Denmark Olar, I believe it was, had a nice win. But from that point forward, had kind of struggled.
Sure.
Hadn't really, won any nice games. I'd heard they had some player issues as far as, maybe some disciplinary stuff. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I was told. Don't know how many guys are back now, but that's a great win for that Tiger program over a Latta team that we all thought, could win a couple ball games. I mean, they hadn't lost but once all year going into this one. So big win there for Allendale Fairfax.
We got Louisville over Calhoun Falls 52-0. Again, our prayers with that Calhoun Falls community. They had a rough week there.
Also, I want to give them a shout out, Coach Theus. I mean, that's a program that won multiple games. I saw the stats he put out on Twitter the other day. So many new records for them, like historic season for them, winning a couple ball games. That's a program that usually just goes over, Jerel, honestly.
Yeah.
Had a really nice season for them. Making the playoffs was huge. Love what he's doing there, and glad to see him having those guys trending in the right direction.
We got McBee over Dixie 49-12. Southside Christian defeats Denmark Olar 59-6.
Was there a team that fell off more than Denmark Olar, Jerel?
I don't think so.
They knock off Bamberg early in the year and then just completely fall off a cliff. I know they had some injuries and whatnot, but I heard the guys were back. Didn't seem like it from looking at scores. I don't know, man. I can't believe what happened to that Viking program.
And a good bounce back for Southside Christian. They took one on the chin last week and just, come in, take care of business over Denmark Olar. That's a testament to their program. Got St. Joe's over HKT 38-24. Another team, man, HKT, you talked about a lot this season. And then when it, comes playoff time, one and done. Got Wagner Sally, huge over CA Johnson 46-6. And
I need to hear what happened in that game because C.A. Johnson's a team that I think we had all been kind of high on all year. Caleb Pearson, one of our players of the week, a few weeks back, really good running the ball, really dynamic playmaker there. Wagner Sally, a team that, hadn't really had any big wins this year, it felt like. I mean, they've been okay, but C.A. Johnson just got the doors blown off. I did not see that coming at all in round 1. But, Jerel, I do have some skis of scores as well for us here before we move into the next section. We've got JDA defeats King Academy 51-6. Porter-Gaud knocks off Ben Lippin 28-23. Looking forward to seeing what Coach Weigel Squad can do next year. That quarterback, Javon Gilmore, is a stud. They're going to be really good, I'm thinking, that in the next couple of years for sure. Wilson Hall knocks off Northwood Academy 49-28. Also, note on Wilson Hall, I said a couple weeks ago, they lost to Florence Christian. Their senior quarterback got hurt, out for the year in that ball game. He's back, Jerel. It was actually as a dislocated elbow. He's back playing now, and that's a huge difference for that Barron squad. They may be a team to look out for in 3A, of course. A big win over Northwood. They're going to be right there at the end, I feel like. Warlaw Academy knocks off Faith Christian 42-8. Patrick Henry knocks off St. John's 28-7. Pinewood Prep 49-7 over First Baptist. Colonel Newman 41-24 over Augusta Christian. Lawrence Manning defeats Heathwood 49-13. Williamsburg all over Spartanburg Christian 46-7. Hilton Head Christian knocks off PD 42-7. Hammond 41, Trinity Collegiate 7. Buford Academy 25, Orangeburg Prep 13. Holly Hill 69-22 over Lawrence Academy. Florence Christian 30-21 over John Paul. Bethesda knocks off Greenwood Christian 50-6. Thomas Hayward 54-22 over Calhoun Academy. A big upset here in the Skeezer ranks. Northside Christian takes down Colin Prep 33-28. Big win there in the 1A ranks. Richard Wynn knocks off Holy Trinity 77-32. And Dorchester takes out Coach Stanley's Dillon Christian squad 46-14 in round 1 of the Skeezer playoffs. Jerel, let's give a quick shout out to our friends of the program here. Then we'll get into our notes and stock up section.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates, KONA, offers the most advanced training and experience in orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, sports medicine, and pain management in the upstate. 3 convenient locations in Spartanburg, Duncan, and Greenville. Go to kona.care to learn more.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row, very good polos.
A couple notes I've got here from round 1, Jerel. We've got Lucy Beckham. The Bengals pick up the first playoff win in school history. Also, remember, only their second year of really playing varsity football. So awesome to see that there for Coach Smith's squad. We've got East Clarendon. They hosted their first playoff games for the first time since 1998 and got their first playoff win since 2006. And then Irmo head coach Aaron Brand picks up his 100th win on Friday night. Awesome to see there for Coach Brand. Great to have that happen. He's been great to us. I'd love to see him get that big win. But let's take a look now at our stock up segment. A couple guys I've got out of the 1A ranks, Lakeview and Wagner Sally. Talked about Lakeview knocking off Whale Branch. Big win for that young program. And then Wagner Sally defeating C.A. Johnson in really non-competitive game. Big win there for the Warhawks.
I'll start up top. I got Dutch Fork. Surprise, surprise. They announced themselves as being back so far. Their big win over Bowling Springs. And then Berkeley, like you said, you mentioned them earlier in the program. Undefeated at home. Got to go on the road and play Summerfield this week. But that's huge for that program as they continue to build.
You got Newberry. Big win over Saluda. Congrats to Coach Jeter there. Keenan, the big win as well over 96. And a program that had been really hot, it felt like. Great win there for Keenan. And then King Street, knocking off a team that we thought was a legit sleeper, and Timberland had a chance to make a deep run. Blazers, a great win there for head coach Brian Smith.
Greenville High, I think they got a big time opportunity. They had an easier win over South Aiken. South Aiken's been dealing with some injury issues, and obviously their defense hasn't been well all year, but they got a good opportunity to knock off that Greer team that we saw this week. Hartsville, you talked about them getting healthy at the right time. Dropped 70 on AC Flora. That's a big time game for them. And then probably our upset, I would say, one of the upsets of the week, that's Lancaster, knocking off that Ridgeview team. That's a very good performance from those guys.
I've got Beaufort, the Eagles, great win on the road at Loris. They just find ways to win in the playoffs, man. Great win there for Coach Liburn's squad. Spartanburg, they found some offense, 30-plus points there against a pretty good Rock Hill team, and then shutting down that Rock Hill offense with Matthew Wilson. They can put his points on the board. Big win there for Coach Hodges' squad. And then Sumter as well. We talked about them as early on as one of our games of the week. What they did to that Ashley Ridge offense was very impressive. The Gamecocks are playing good football.
Couple more I've got is Camden. They seem to be playing some very good ball down the stretch. And then Johnsonville, kind of had a difficult win. Really kind of, got out of hand when they played that Latta team early in the season. But I really like you as well, Malik Shippey and that offense. They really have the experience to make a run, and they seem to be doing so down the stretch here.
Couple Skeezer guys, Lee Academy, the big blowout win over Clarendon Hall, the very impressive win there for Coach Rankin's team. And the Northside Christian with probably the upset of round 1 in the Skeezer playoffs, knocking off Colin and Prep. Big win there for those guys.
Yeah, that's all I got. You got any more teams?
Allendale Fairfax, big win over Latta there. Great win for those guys also. Didn't see that one coming. Good win for them on Friday night. Jerel, let's take a look now at our playoff performers, guys who had great great games in round 1. Brought to you by the Georgia Agency. Open enrollment is here. Check them out for all your insurance needs, whether you're a small business owner, whether you're a seasonal worker, whatever it is, you need insurance for yourself or group insurance. Check them out, thegeorgiaagency.net. Reach out to Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew. Appreciate everyone sending stats. This might have been the most stats we've ever gotten in a week. We had 20-plus people, sending us different guys on Facebook, another 20-plus on Twitter. Love to see it. Keep doing that, guys. We want to shout out all these kids each and every week. So definitely hit us up with these great performances all throughout the playoffs. But Jerel, let's take a look at our round 1 playoff performers.
Yes, this is definitely the longest list that we have been given as far as nominees or anything like that. So just really excited to shout these guys out. But we start with a familiar name. That's Kayvon Rivera at Hanahan. Goes 19 carries for 245 yards, 5 touchdowns. Goes over 2,000 for the season and 5,000 for his career. Congratulations to him. Got Jared Acosta at Newberry, 13 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a quarterback pressure. Will Wilson at Richland Northeast goes 9 of 14 for 140 in the air, and then has 17 carries for 401 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. James
Jerel, I got to stop you there. That's an average of 23.5 yards a carry from your quarterback.
Absurd.
I mean, I know we talked about almost 1,000 yards earlier, but just thinking about those numbers is just unreal.
Absurd. Well, listen to these. We got James Willingham, also at Richland Northeast, 21 carries for 330 yards and 5 touchdowns. And that offensive line was getting it done, obviously. Again, they had over 700 yards of rushing offense, almost 1,000 yards of total offense, and they scored 88 points. So that RNE O-line was getting it done against Bluffton in their big-time win there. Got Nike McNeil at Keenan, 8.5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Got Quindarius McMillan of Keenan, 19 tackles, a TFL and a PBU. Got Tyreek Davenport Smith of Keenan, 7.5 tackles, 3 TFLs, a sack, 2 hurries, and that sack was on the last play of the game. Going over to Greenwood, got Marnarian Pumpkin Chamberlain, love the nicknames, at 16 carries for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, also goes 11 for 17 for 98 yards. Backup quarterback, big time win over North Augusta for Pumpkin and the boys. Man, that is good stuff there. Got Chancellor Crosby of Bamberg Earhart, goes 20 of 22 for 377, 4 touchdowns. Also had 2 carries for 7 yards and another touchdown. Nick Folk of Bamberg Earhart, not that Nick Folk, the real Nick Folk, goes 12 rushes for 140 and a touchdown. Brett Young at Clinton, man, this kid is an animal, has 10 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 PBUs, a sack, and a fumble recovery. He's going to have to strap it up. They got Jalen McGill and Broom next week. Brady Albro of Chapin goes 31 of 40 for 497 and 3 touchdowns. They lost in a heartbreaker, but he had a big-time performance. Thomas Stanley of Hillcrest, the running back there, goes 39 totes for 248, 3 touchdowns, sets a school single-game rushing record. Big-time game for Thomas there.
I do want to shout out, you mentioned that's a huge game. A team that starting quarterback out, Caleb Sutton, Thomas Stanley steps up, huge ball game there, man. Love to see that for him.
Put the team on his back, man. Love to see those performances. Wants to keep playing. So you got to have those performances like that, and he got it done in the big-time win over Nation Ford. Got Jaden Andrews of Beaufort, goes for 130 and 4 touchdowns in their win over Loris. Cortez Lane out of Cardinal Newman, 19 carries for 260, 4 touchdowns. Also had 2 catches for 30 yards. 290 total yards. That's a big-time performance there. Surprise, surprise, our man, Drew Spires and Richard Wynn. Listen to this one tonight, Kev. 5 receptions for 168, 4 touchdowns, had 2 totes for 17 yards, 4 2-point conversions. Then on the defensive side, had 9.5 tackles and a forced fumble. Going back to Bamberg, Jamie Downing had 17 tackles, a sack, and a pick. Landon Sharp, the quarterback at White Knoll, goes 20 for 23, 239, 3 touchdowns, and 6 rushes for 35 yards and a rushing TD. I guess I need to shut up. Andrew Stevens, look at this stat line at Burns, goes 15 of 20 for 325, 3 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. Makes it easier when you're tossing it over to players like Armani Weaver at Burns. 4 receptions for 156 and a touchdown. Quarterback Malik Shippey at Johnsonville goes 9 of 12 for 157 and 5 touchdowns in the first half. quick night for him. Carmelo McDaniel, he's back indeed. 10 totes for 180 and 3 touchdowns. Hakeem Waters, the guy that's kind of been filling in for him in his absence, goes 10 carries for 180 and 2 touchdowns. Henry Rivers, the freshman phenom down at Berkeley, goes 4 touchdowns. Got Cam McMillan, our player of the week last week, goes 15 of 15 for 277 and 3 touchdowns. Kev, don't think you can do much better than that. Cyree Livingston of South Florida goes 17 carries for 246 and 4 touchdowns. Azarian Yates at Crestwood, 15 carries for 145, 4 touchdowns. Camden Moore at Williamsburg, 6 carries, 119 and 2 touchdowns. Also had 2 catches for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 192 total yards, and 4 total touchdowns. And Jaden Cummins, the gunslinger down at Somerville, goes 24 of 31 for 320 and 4 touchdowns. Kevin, playoff performers in round 1, getting it done across the state of South Carolina.
Awesome to see. You know, like we said, Jerel, keep sending us these stats, guys, man. We love shouting these guys out. You know, we're going to give them a tag on social media and whatnot, so definitely give them a shout out each and every week on our recap shows. To continue to send us out on all platforms, whether it's email or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Keep those rolling in. Love to see those. And as always, our players of the week, our playoff performers, brought to you by the Georgia Agency. Let's give a quick shout out to our friends of the program before we look into our Folly Row question.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
The Georgia Agency has been serving the insurance needs of South Carolina for over 40 years. They're a full-line insurance agency concentrated in employee benefits and health insurance with an office in Mullins and Murrells Inlet, but they can help you all across the state. They have clients in Greer, Rock Hill, Columbia, and more, so wherever you are, they can help. Give Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew a call or check them out online at thegeorgiaagency.net. That's thegeorgiaagency.net.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture-wicking, quick-drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
Jerel, this week's Folly Row question. Tough one here. I'm not sure how I want to answer it yet, but I'm letting you go first here just to make sure I got time. And that is, did too many teams make the playoffs?
Yes, I think so. And here's why. It kind of piggybacks off last week. Here's my reasoning for it. I think there should be a seeding system as far as playoffs are concerned. Again, and don't think that I'm like anti-football, because the more football, the better. I just think you see a lot of these blowouts in a lot of these cases, and they're just kind of necessary. I mean, you see a situation where Irmo, this is a team that's played really well all year. They drop 85 points, and they play an opponent that scores nothing. You know, and I think it's a situation where, of course, you want to reward people for a good season, and it's a difficult, question to answer. And I'm sure you'll bring it up we talked about Lancaster earlier. That's a 1-9 team. They win a region game, and then they pull off one of the biggest upsets. So you do have those situations, but I think you have more of the 85 to nothings, 57 to nothings, 49 to nothings than you do of the, 26 to 14. 4 seed, 1 seed upsets, or 2-3 upsets, things like that. So too many teams.
Yeah, and I think that made this change. It would have been, 2014-ish, something like that, where they started letting a few more teams in the playoffs. And I think the reasoning behind it was teams get an extra gate, to get some more money into the program. But Jerel, from us going to some of these games like the last couple of years, I feel like that round 1 game, especially if it's like a 1-4 matchup, You're not seeing a lot of folks there. And with what you're having to pay for officials and what you're having to pay to travel there, if you're a team like a Colleton County that had to go to Irmo or whatever it is, I don't know how much money you're actually making.
Sure. So
I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're an AD and you've got better stats than me, definitely let us know, because we don't know what the financials look like there. But I'm hard pressed to see where it makes you a ton of money there with that 1 extra gate. But I think you're right, Jerel. I mean, I'm all for giving the kids more games to play in football, for sure. But this is the playoffs, man. They get 10 regular season games like that. That's it. Like, at the playoff point, you got to earn it to get there. I mean, you should have to win, I don't know, 3 games to get there, like some kind of qualifier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Like you said, I love what Lancaster did. That's awesome to see a 1-9 team win that football game. But maybe you make a way where each team, like you said, each region gets a certain number of teams in it, and then after that, you get a certain number of at-larges, but it's done by some committee. So maybe a team like that who plays in a tough region doesn't have the win, still has a chance to get in. I don't know what you do, but I think the way it's set up right now, there probably are a few too many that get in there.
Yeah, because I think that's a very good point that you had at the end there. You'll see these regions who are a little bit weaker. You'll see like one team from the region is still playing.
Yeah.
And then you see these other regions where like everybody is still playing, and that's a situation where we need like an independent committee that kind of ranks these teams, like some seeding, just to make it more competitive. I like competitive balance too, and I don't know. It's a difficult thing to ask, but that was one of my favorite questions we've had all year as our Folly Row question of the week.
Yeah, that was a good one. Definitely, guys, chime in on social media, on Twitter / X, Facebook. Let us know your thoughts and let us know what you guys think about that as well. I mean, honestly, we talk about every year how either there's, I'm about to go on a different tangent here, Joe. I think it actually makes sense now. We talk about how either it's too hot to start the games when we start them, or else they play too late into the year because they're going to December, or even if there's a year with a hurricane or whatever it is that throws off the whole track. You could literally do away with the first round of playoff games, and that gives you a free week to either start a week later where it's not quite as hot, maybe you end a week earlier where it's you end on that Thanksgiving week or whatever it is. Maybe even you set up a system where some teams get buys or whatever going into the playoffs, or maybe you set up where you have a bye week between the regular season and the playoffs in case there's like a hurricane issue or whatever. You can play games there. So, I think that opens up more possibilities as well, because right now people are always complaining about, whether it's too hot, too cold, whatever. Maybe this gives you some more flexibility with the schedule as well if you drop a round of playoff games.
Yeah, I don't care about the weather, but I do like, the buys. Like, that'd be cool, like you're because essentially, I mean, that's what a lot of these are. You'll look at these scores. I mean, we just read through the playoff performers, playing a half of football in a playoff game because you're blowing out your opponent so bad,
A lot of shutouts, especially in the 1A ranks, it sounded like, I think, Jerel.
Dude, I read, I want to say, I'm going to pull it right back up. I know we're rambling now. I think I read 6 shutouts in a row in 1A in the score lines.
That's tough.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, hey, we don't get paid to make these calls, Jerel, so we'll see what happens.
We just get to talk about them.
That's true. I wonder, I don't know when that gets talked about. I don't know if maybe this year with it being a reclassification year, maybe that's something that gets brought up. I don't know, but we'll see. Like I said, chime in, give us you guys' thoughts. Love to hear what you think about the playoff situation, and as far as if we need less teams, I don't think we need more teams by any means, but if we need less or you like what we got, whatever it is, definitely let us know your thoughts on that. And while you're doing that on social media, check out our merch sales as well. We're on Facebook. We've got great pictures on there, great pictures on Instagram, got great pictures on Twitter. We got hats, Richardson hats, Yupong hats. We got toboggans. We got gray. We got black. We got hoodies, white, gray, really comfortable stuff. Get one now for that colder weather. All our prices include shipping. We're doing what we can, guys, trying to give you the best rate we can. So definitely check that out. Order yours, mtcgear.sc@gmail.com, or just send us a DM, whatever you want to do. Check it out, get some gear. Help us out. Help us buy better equipment to do the show with and whatnot. Definitely love to have you guys supporting the boys and helping us give these schools and players better and better coverage. Check us out on all social media at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS. That's Facebook, Twitter /X, Instagram, YouTube, etc. Our website, movinchains.com. Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We do our weekly preview show. Comes out on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. It's live on Facebook and YouTube. Going to be a lot of fun these next couple weeks as we kind of break down what's going to happen in these playoff rounds. Definitely tune in for that. Give us your 2 cents. Love to hear from you guys. Jerel and I do our weekly recap show on Sundays. Comes out on all podcast platforms there. We do our Friday night spaces on Twitter /X about 10:30, 11. Go through all the scores, have guys call in, give us their thoughts. It's a lot of fun as well on Fridays. Jerel, did I miss anything else that we need to plug? I know you mentioned the Bendig interview earlier. Give that a shout, and anything else you can think of.
No, the only other thing, man, just also go see our friends over at Folly Row, man. It's holiday season. It's an easy gift. These guys do a fantastic job in creating some great apparel, especially stuff to wear out on the golf course or, collared shirts you wear it anywhere. So go check that stuff out at our friends at Folly Row. They do some good stuff. I know me and Kevin are both customers and enjoy their products. And like you said, it's easy to do so for Christmas. Get your dad something nice, something for game day, something to wear on the course, or to, casual Friday, a business meeting, something like that. You never know. So go check that stuff out.
For sure. And like I said, probably tune in Thursday probably for this Philip Simmons, Eric Bendig interview, something like that. Keep an eye out. We'll post it when we have it, and definitely tune in for that. I do want to give a shout out to all the guys whose careers ended on Friday night. I mean,
yes,
a lot of guys that we enjoyed following the last couple of years. Jerel, it's funny, while you're going through the scores, I was kind of jotting down a couple names of guys like, man, I remember this guy and this guy and this guy. Guys like, Terrence Smith and Jaron Waiters and Christian Sexton, Tamir Hickman Collins, and Chisholm and Aiken and Sally Jr. and Taden Mines and Eli Hudgens, Harrison Jeffries, Harrison Collins, like just guys that have been, part of our lives the last couple of years. It feels like, Drew, we've read their stat line and whatnot so long. So definitely shout out to all those guys, man. Hope them the best in their next career choice, whether it's college football, whether that's just college in general, whatever it is. Wish them the best. Shout out to all the seniors. Appreciate you guys and what you've done. And if you guys are still playing, you're lucky. Count your blessings. Best of luck this week. Hope you can keep it going, huh?
Yeah, man, that's I couldn't have put it any better because it never goes away. That last game, it never goes away. You always want to play, just one more snap, and it's really, really difficult when it's over. And even the guys, that are going to the next level, there's nothing like those Friday night lights. It's a lot of fun. It's a special time in your life. So it's exciting. And then to the guys, congrats who get another week going to round 2. That's it. That's exciting. I never got to round 2, so I wouldn't know how to talk about that experience, but congrats to those guys.
Moving the Chains, as always, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. For Jerel Hendricks, I'm Kevin Thomas. This has been our round 1 Folly Row recap show, and we will catch you guys soon.